Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Merle Massey. I'm the coordinator for undergraduate research here at the University of Saskatchewan, and we have a wonderful treat for you today. We have a faculty roundtable. And this is from faculty members who have various experiences with supporting undergraduate students who have been research assistants or otherwise conducting research either in class or in with the professors. But with that, I'm going to disappear. I'm going to turn it over to the moderator, Alexis Celski.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Alexis Celski. I am the student assistant as of September with the Undergraduate Research Initiative, and I'm so happy to be here today. We've got a lot of good female representation here, and that always gets me really excited. So with that, we'll do some introductions now that I've kind of said my piece. We can start with Emily, since you were kind of the first one in the chat here, but just if you could give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself, your area of research, and maybe one fun fact to kind of break the ice.
Sounds good. So my name is Emily McWalter. I am an assistant professor in mechanical engineering. I do quite multidisciplinary research. I study biomechanics, mostly knee joints with MRI. So I bring some MRI physics, some engineering, some medicine all into my research. So that's what I mostly do. I really like having undergrads in my lab. I've been here since January 2016. And I've had 8 undergrads in my group so far. So I really enjoy having undergrads engage in research. One fun fact about myself, my first job was at Colonel's Popcorn, and I still make a mean batch of popcorn.
Oh my goodness. I definitely can't have that skill because I would eat popcorn for every meal. But with that, we'll pass it on to Chris if you wanted to take a stab at your introduction now too.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Chris Soder. I'm a professor in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics. I've been here a long time, over 30 years. And my PhD is in applied and computational mathematics. And my research from the time that I was a postdoc has been modeling polymers. So for me, though, a polymer is just any large molecule made of repeated molecular units. And for example, I even think of DNA as a polymer. And I've been focusing on models of polymers in solution and mainly discrete models. And some of the questions so I'm an applied mathematician. I'm often interested in questions about models that arise from experiments or from people from studying from other areas. But I'm also interested in the mathematical side of things as well. What can you prove? And one of the areas that I'm particularly interested in is in DNA topology questions. So looking at studying knots and links in DNA. And the models come from physics, so there's statistical physics models. And I work with a lot of different collaborators, so other mathematicians, also people in molecular biology, people in biophysics, and that kind of thing. And then in terms of a fun fact, well, especially I've taken advantage of this during the pandemic. I love the Mawassan River Valley. I enjoy jogging there, taking photos, bird watching. And so one has to be careful though in taking photos and bird watching at the same time. I do have an experience of not watching where I'm going and actually breaking my ankle at one point. But anyway.
Oh my goodness.
It wasn't actually on the Mawassan River Valley, so that's another story, but still.
It was just doing 2 of your favorite things and it ended in a not so positive thing. Well, that's awesome. I love Mawassan as well. With that, we'll pass it on to Sarah for the next introduction.
Hi, I'm Sarah Donkers. I'm in the School of Rehabilitation Science, which is in our College of Medicine at the university. So I was a physiotherapist not treating broken ankles. Sorry about that one, Chris. But I specialized in neural rehabilitation, which led me to my research. And my research is primarily in translational neuroscience. So I look at ways to optimize or maximize recovery and function after neurological disease or injury. So most of my work is in multiple sclerosis right now. I do a lot of intervention mechanism studies to try and promote that recovery. And then on the other end of it, we do a lot of work trying to improve the access to and the quality of these neuro rehab services, promoting neural recovery for people living with neurological conditions. Yes, so I'm an assistant professor. So I've been on faculty for 3 years, just started my 4th year. Time flies by. It's lots of fun. I love working with students. I take them on research projects or hire them for odd jobs, data entry, help with data collection. I have lots of fun equipment in my lab too. So that's always a bonus. Steep learning curve, but a bonus. I'm obsessed with white cheddar and dill pickle kernels. So Emily, just saying, you might be my new best friend. And then instead of a fun fact, just because we're leading into Thanksgiving, I have a joke here, and it's a total dad joke. What did the turkey say to the turkey hunter on Thanksgiving? What did the turkey say to the turkey hunter? Quack, quack. Because he didn't want the turkey hunter to know he was a turkey.
He was disguising himself. I get it. I totally get it. That was a really good one. Yeah, I might whip that one out at family dinner. Taking it. Okay, and we'll finish off with Jenny Lee here with the introductions. I'll pass it off to you.
Okay, so I guess I'll get started. So I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Biochemistry, Microbiology, and Immunology. I started in May of 2020, so I'm one of the more recent hires who started during the pandemic, which is always lots of fun. And since I've joined, I'm counting in my head now, 5 undergrads in the lab. Oh, needless to say, I do like working with undergrads and doing undergrad research. And my research is focused on how bacteria interact with their surrounding environment, so that could be people, to promote their own survival. And trying to think of a fun fact about myself right now, and there's not much going on because of COVID. But I guess, yeah, fun facts. Fun fact is,
yeah,
being a microbiologist, I also have the awful cold that you guys were describing, so I'm unable to protect myself from infection.
I was just thinking that you had the same cold as me, Jenny Lee.
Yeah, I got it from my kids. So we've had multiple COVID tests this week, and none of us have COVID apparently.
Oh, good.
But yeah,
but still sucks to be down and out. I know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, a couple of you kind of touched on it in your introduction, and maybe we'll follow the same sequence of speakers, but how have you worked with undergraduate students as researchers, whether that be kind of in coursework or, as some of you mentioned, maybe in the lab or paying them to do some research? What's your kind of experience with undergrad researchers, and how has it been? Emily, you can take us away here.
Sure. So I teach second year dynamics class, so kinematics and kinetics, to the second year mechanical engineers. So I often recruit out of that class because it's a second semester class. So most of my students have come to me through that. They generally apply for the NSERC USRA, which is very competitive, but I think it's a good kind of opportunity to start looking at applying to funding. Also, there's some like college funds for students, so I bring them in through those programs as well. And it's funny, when I was just starting out, I had really grand ideas about how much work could get done in a summer. So the projects at the beginning were somewhat bigger, but you know what? I've had my students, they've tended to stay with me for multiple summers. One became my grad student. And so I actually give quite substantial projects. I don't have my undergrads necessarily working on just helping a grad student. They do their own project. I usually either they'll design and build something, collect some MRI data, or get given some MRI data and process it. And how it's kind of worked is some of my students recently, you know, one summer, there was a few students designing this loading device that we used in the MRI. And then we collected a tiny bit of data that summer. And then the next summer, one came back and she collected more data. And then she went off and got a job. So the next student came in to process the data. So it's kind of been this chain of students working on this project long term. And it's been nice to kind of have them really get their hands into a particular aspect of a project and also communicate with each other over what was done previously. So yeah, that's I guess how I've approached it, is really wanted to give the students starting at second year an actual research experience with their own project and not just be a helper or just getting assigned a task. It's not task oriented, it is kind of project oriented.
Absolutely. It's funny that you say the deadline thing, because I do have to say that in doing my own research, we would always sit in our lab and say, okay, we'll have this done by March. And then March would roll around. We go, okay, August. And then August would roll around. You just can't, it just has to take its own progression.
And that's okay, right? I think it's valuable. Any part of a project you work on is great. And there's always going to be a lot of learning and a lot of contribution regardless. So basically what's going to happen though is we're going to end up with a lot of authors on this paper, because there's going to be lots of contributions of all the students over the years. But I'm really proud that I do have these projects that are going to be published in top ranked journals that are primarily undergraduate students who've carried out the work.
Absolutely. And taking that on for students is such an amazing experience. So that's wonderful. Chris, could you speak to some of your experiences with undergrad students?
Sure. A lot of what I'm going to say is going to be very similar to what Emily just said. So I've been here, as I said, a long time, and almost every summer I've had at least one student. And initially, and that's continued on, a lot of it was motivated by the existence of the NSERC USRA program. And I would start looking for a student to nominate for that program. And then because the student can have that award for more than 1 year, often it will be the same student. If they get it successfully, then I will start out thinking this project can be done in one summer. But then it turns out it does take longer than that, and then I'll hire the same student of 1 year to the next. And I have had students go on to do master's and PhD degrees, starting from some undergraduate research with me. And just like Emily said, mine are project oriented. So, but it does usually involve students working with other team members on related problems. But I do try to sort of carve out particular aspect for that student, for the summer student, to focus on. What else did I want to say? Yeah, so also because of the type of research I do, students can come in with varied backgrounds and still make contributions. And so, yes, I've even had high school students working with me. And so usually, especially if the student has a strong math background or some computational skills, then they have usually enough to make a contribution. So I think maybe that's the main things I'll say.
Absolutely. That sounds wonderful, especially the interdisciplinary aspect of your form of research. Sarah, could you take it away now?
You bet. So I don't teach undergrad. I teach mostly professional, or like our physiotherapy program is a master's program. So I have a few friends, colleagues that I've made friends with who teach undergrads, and then I guest lecture and I, pitch, plead, let all the undergrad students know how fun it is. And I've co-supervised honors projects like in the fourth year of undergrad, and then or just meet through a guest lecture students who are kind of interested in the topic area. And it's turned into summer projects. I've had 2 students who have done 3 years. So one started as an honors project, and then they got into medicine and did a Dean summer student project, and then came back the next year and did a Dean summer student project. I only make them sign up for one commitment, but then it snowballs. So I like to offer a variety. Pre-COVID, I was better able to allow students just to volunteer, right? Or just to like audit, to come in and just see what was going on, to see if they'd be interested in doing a research project. Taking summer students, but I've only ever had one summer student that didn't turn into something else, right? Once you, especially if you pick the right student, it's a match, right? It's not just picking the right student. It's like finding that match. The project moves on, or their skill set moves on. So I've trained students on a certain piece of equipment that then we get another grant for, and then I have funding to hire a research assistant, and then often I'll hire that student who did an undergraduate research placement or summer research student placement in my lab. I'll then hire them casually while they're doing their studies to run that piece of equipment during lab. So lots of variety and lots of snowballing.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's a little bit of a different perspective. I think that's the benefit of having all of you here today, is getting to hear those different sides. But Jenny Lee, would you like to finish us off with your experience?
Sure. So I guess my experience since joining USask is a bit different because I'm fairly junior. So when I first joined, I actually actively chased honors students and asked around, hey, are there any honors students who haven't found a lab? Who wants to come work with me? And tried to find people to join. And in your first year, you don't teach much. So I volunteered myself to guest lecture, to try to interact with some students and kind of get something going. So within this year, I'll actually be teaching in a course officially. But so far, my experience getting undergraduate students with, at least at USask, was me kind of chasing them down until, I guess, this summer, when I had a few actually email who wanted to join the lab and do summer projects.
That's wonderful. I know every student kind of has a different story. A lot of my friends do. I know for me, I was sitting in a class and then I get an email saying, please meet me in my office. And I thought I did something bad. Little did I know she was going to offer me a position, which I didn't even know I could qualify for, but things just worked out the way they needed to be. And I think every student kind of has their different journey, which kind of leads me into the big question is, how do students best reach out to kind of land an undergraduate research position? I know this is a big question for them, whether they feel like it's too big of a feat or wondering if they qualify and things like that. So what would you recommend for them? You guys can kind of just pop in and out and say your little tips and tricks.
Maybe I could sort of say, adding to sort of how I found students, I usually start looking for students to nominate for awards like the Insert USRA Award. And so I will look in the classes that I'm teaching to see if there's anybody, but I'm not always teaching an undergraduate class. And so then I will let other faculty know that I'm looking to hire a student. and then they may refer people that they know about. So to turn that around, if you're a student looking for an opportunity, maybe the first thing you should do is talk to an instructor that you feel comfortable with. Let them know that you're looking for a research position, and give them some idea about what kind of area you're interested in, or say, oh, I'm open to anything. This is my background. I'm willing to do anything, and see if they can suggest someone else you should talk to next, or maybe they have a position. If that doesn't get you anywhere, then maybe look at faculty websites and look for sort of research descriptions that sound interesting to you, and email the faculty member. So the thing to do is, if you can be aware of what these summer research funding opportunities might be aware of when those deadlines are. Like NSERC faculty might start looking even now, right? They know that there's going to be the possibility to nominate somebody coming up, but usually the announcement comes out in late November about those. So, just start letting faculty know that you're interested in a research position. The other thing that is really good for a faculty member is, part of the issue with summer jobs is if a faculty member hires you, it costs the faculty member money, right? So if you're able to come up with some possible funding idea on your own, and go to a faculty member, say, I found this interesting award that I think that might suit me. Well, are you willing to nominate me for this? Then that could be the starting point of a fruitful discussion, because it could be something that the faculty member never heard of before, but they're willing to pursue it with you. Okay, I'll stop there.
Absolutely. Sarah, I saw you unmute as well. You can go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing. Know your opportunities, right? So there's the summer undergraduate student research opportunities, but also checking the job board. A lot of people, like if we need last minute RAs, like I just closed a position. I had over 30 USask undergraduate students apply for it, and some great candidates, and none of them are, I know, like I didn't teach any of them. I've got people from arts and science. So just building on what Chris says, it doesn't have to be someone that's taught you. It can be someone else in the institution in the University of Saskatchewan. But don't be afraid to reach out, right? We love when students are eager, especially when they come to us like with their why, like know your why. And if you're a curious person, like we are curious, that's how we got to this role, to this job. And we love talking if you haven't figured that one out yet. So yeah, reach out, send an email, just let us know, what you're studying, what you're interested about in research. Or if you're not sure you're interested, let us know that too. I didn't think I ever wanted to go into research. I was going to be a healthcare provider, and little did I know, I'm obsessed. So
that's so good. Do both of you other ladies kind of echo the same thing? Do you have anything else to add onto that discussion?
So I have something to add, because I'm not sure if all departments do that, but in my department, I'm on the graduate studies committee, and we actually run a session every fall for undergrads who are interested in research, either summer research or grad school. And right now I actually run the session. So next week, I'm going to have this session where I just explain some of the processes. I talk about these awards. I talk about what research is like, what grad school is like. And so be looking out for that in your department or in your college. There are sessions like that, kind of discipline specific, that can kind of give you that extra information or extra kind of push to pursue this option. I know what I do is I actually email all my colleagues in the department, and I say, who's interested in having a summer student? So I can even give the students a list of professors to go and talk to. And so I find, I get that sometimes a cold email is a difficult thing. I still encourage people to do it because I like Sarah said, I'm really happy to always receive those, but also look within your department or your unit to see if there's that type of session going on.
Absolutely. Someone did tell me this once. The worst thing they can say is no, and they'll appreciate that you took the time to even try. So definitely just shooting an email sometimes can be the best thing. I guess I'll start with Jenny Lee here with this next question, but what are some of the skills and characteristics you look for in a student when you're looking to work with them or hire them from your experience? What are some of the characteristics?
Okay, well, when I'm looking to work with undergraduate students, the biggest thing is I look for an interest in the actual research that we're doing. So I don't expect an undergraduate student to show up and have any relevant lab experience. It's a learning experience. I expect you to come and to learn how to do things from scratch. So don't feel intimidated when you send an email thinking, oh, I've never worked in a lab before, I don't know how to do anything. I completely expect you not to know how to do anything, and it's really okay. So I look for an interest. I look for someone who will be honest with me, because I think the biggest part of doing good science is being honest. And I also look for someone who is organized. So I want you to be organized. I want you to be able to kind of organize your time. And that's about it. I don't look for anything really above and beyond a real interest. I look for you to be organized, and I look for you to be honest. And I think from that point onwards, we can move forward and kind of build your research.
Absolutely. Those are awesome characteristics for people to kind of, those are very attainable, very manageable, very being able to self-assess and things like that. Does anybody else kind of want to add any characteristics or skills they look for?
That was so well put, Jenny Lee. That's it. What else do we add? I look for curiosity. So I guess that comes like with the interest, and it doesn't have to be the interest necessarily in the exact research question that's going on, but it could be, you know, an interest in research or research methods or working with that population or topic or subject or whatever. But yeah, I like curious people because they tend to be good communicators, and that leads to the honesty and that open communication that you need in order to make good science. So yeah, I really look for someone who's not afraid to ask questions and to know their limitations.
All those things that have been mentioned, I would say are the priorities for me, but I also do look at student transcripts and which courses they have taken. And I do look at the grades as well. So if all I have is what's on paper to look at, I do think that sort of in the math and stat courses that I'm familiar with, that higher grades do sort of indicate some ability for the student to work independently, to learn things on their own. And so, and that is important to me, that while they're going to have to work in a group, they are going to have to be able to do some things on their own. And so I do get a sense from the transcript about that, but it's definitely not the only thing. And I can be, once I meet the student and have an interaction with them, that will definitely add more.
I'll just add one more thing. Everything that's been said has been great. I guess I want to add a little bit of nuance to the transcript and the mark situation. You don't have to be the top of your class. Like, you don't need to be amongst the top 1 or 2 or 3. I often find that if you're in the top, 20 to 25%, there are some incredibly hard workers in that group that can make up for maybe those exceptional marks. And the reason I say that is because, well, research, you need to have an aptitude, you need to have technical abilities. so much of research is just hard work. If you're willing to put in the work, so much of it can be made up by putting in the hard work. And so some of my most successful students weren't my top students. They were, you know, good students for sure, but not top of the class students. So I want to encourage, if you're willing to put in the work, and I think you have an opportunity to be really successful as an undergraduate researcher.
I think that comment is very comforting, because I would have to say I probably was the 20-25%. I'm not an exceptional student, but I knew that if I wanted to take on this opportunity and I was going to commit to it, I was going to have to do hard work, because not everything came as naturally to me. So yeah, definitely never be discouraged to try and to work hard, because it could really create something wonderful. So
can I just add to, so when I didn't say highest grades, I said higher grades. And yes, definitely hard. So the higher grades also show hard work too, as well as independence. So both those things are important. So yeah, I didn't want to leave people with the wrong impression. Yeah,
that's why I wanted to add kind of a bit of a new, like a slight bit to that, because I assume like as faculty, that's what we mean, but sometimes that's not what everyone hears. So I think Chris and I are completely on the same page about the transcript, because it'd be a lie to say it's not important, because if you stay through research, your transcript will follow you. So your transcript is important, but that you can make up for that with some hard work too.
Absolutely. Our last question that I kind of had prepared, you guys went above and beyond and kind of answered it already. So I'm going to freestyle here, but what's some of the feedback you've got from students who have done research projects and gone on, and what do they kind of say about that research experience in personal and kind of professional development for themselves? Anyone can steal it. I'm sending it out.
All right, I'll take a stab. I'll throw myself in the deep end. So like I said, I'm in engineering. There are not a lot of women in engineering. And I do hire a lot of female undergrad students. I'm assuming mostly because that's who comes to me, probably because they feel more comfortable coming to me than maybe some of the other professors. So the feedback that I've really had is how, as my students have gone into their industrial jobs, because some of them have gone into industrial jobs in consulting, in kind of pure engineering jobs. It's not necessarily those the research topics or the actual topic area that they learned with me. It's the skills, it's the hard work, it's some of the softer skills, the communication skills, the confidence that these women leave with at the end of a summer. Any student leaves at the end of the summer. I feel like it actually sets them up to do better in their next year of school, because they've tried different things. They've got this different skill set. So I've been fortunate that I've had great feedback from my summer students, and I see them off in these all different directions doing great work, not specifically in this research area, but just across the board. I think the experience, even if you're thinking industry after your degree, if you're not thinking graduate school yet, those skills really can translate to any job. So I think it does give you the leg up in some soft skills along the way. Yeah.
Absolutely. That really was the perfect answer. I think that the confidence piece is, as Merle just said in the chat, is a really big part of students taking on that research. Did anyone want to add to anything, or was that perfect?
Maybe I'll just add, because it was sort of, I had an answer for a slightly different take on the question. You had asked us ahead of time, to address what skills or personal characteristics will help students have a good research experience. And it's sort of a similar kind of question. So there I said, be open to working collaboratively with others. And I usually give that experience. And actually that is what students tell me too, is that they've learned a lot, just as much from the other students they've been working with, maybe even more so than working with me. Also, I hope that they learn to listen carefully and be able to follow up on directions, but also to know when they're stuck, when it's time to come back and ask for further direction. And I think those skills, if they learn it, that it's going to apply to any other work experience as well. And also to be willing to make mistakes, admit them. So that's where the honesty comes in for sure, and then learn from those mistakes. And through all this, they will develop their communication skills and their confidence.
Entirely. That's awesome. So if students had any questions for our lovely panel, definitely enter them in chat. We'd love to get them answered in this session today. If anybody had any other comments to add about that question about, you know, what makes up a good research experience, or some of the feedback they've had from students, we would love to hear that.
I'll just add, it's not always what you expect it to be. So that's some of the feedback I've gotten back, like what their ideas of research were, or what they thought they were going to be involved with. It's not always what they expect to be, and sometimes that's a positive, and sometimes it's a negative. Like the realities of COVID and the realities of research even outside of COVID is you have to be adaptable. But I've always heard every student, or every student I've had has always said that they've learned something about themselves. And I think that contributes to the confidence. And it's these skills on how to critically think, how to problem solve, how to take on a bit more initiative in situations that you didn't necessarily think you were prepared for. Yeah. And like going back to our very first question about where we got students, I think the fact that we've had snowballing, or, you know, that one person who just came and did a little undergraduate summer research experience, and then you have them for 3 years, or you go on and they end up being your grad student. For the most part, I think they're really positive experiences.
Truly, I know I can speak to mine, and just saying that, like, outside of my degree, it probably was the most rewarding experience, because I got to take my learning into my own hands, and it wasn't rote memory, and I got to have something at the end to kind of look at and feel like I accomplished something. So I definitely can see how that would play out. We have a question in the chat here from actually one of our students, and it's actually a good question. They ask, why do you as a researcher, why are you so determined for look for undergrads? Why is that something you want to support in your role?
Worker bees. worker bees. Like we have to run labs, we have to run equipment, there's turnover. Often we have to hire in very short periods, right? Like unless you have these longer term grants, you don't always know what's coming down the pipe, and then you need preliminary data, or a project from a grad student, they've left your lab, but you have data that needs to be, you know, processed or done. So we love great undergraduate students to help us get our work done, but we also love mentoring and educating them, and just sharing our curiosity and our passion and love for our research area, and the impact of our research work.
I'd say, like, yeah, exactly. Some of it is selfless, like we want to teach and try and contribute, and some of it is selfish to get our grants done. For NSERC, for example, we need to show that we've trained a certain number of highly qualified personnel, or HQPs, and I can rack up my numbers when I have a list of undergrads. So it's a little bit selfish as well. We hopefully it's a symbiotic relationship, right? We hope to give you guys a great experience, and we also need students to do the work, and also we need to show that we have an ability as researchers to train the next generation of researchers. That's part of our job, is to train the next generation of researchers. So we need to do that at certain levels. And also anytime we can hook you in and bring you to grad school, that's positive for us. So that's another reason we like undergrads, is to keep you long term. Then you hit the ground running in your masters and it's a smoother process. So
I've had a number of students who've sent me questions directly instead of putting them in the open chat. I know, Alexa, there are some in the open chat as well, but one student says, thanks for a great panel. I have a question regarding fourth-year honors projects. Should the student come to the PI with their own project in mind, or should they go to the PI open to whatever project the PI might have going on? Any of you can answer that one. You might have different.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
In my earlier years on faculty, I just wanted to nourish the interest in research. And if it was kind of in the same topic area, I was willing to do it. But sometimes there's not always the time or resources to dedicate towards that. And sometimes we have a program of research and a number of ongoing projects that we need to slot students into. So I have done both. And it depends on the timeline too, right? Like summers fly by, and I think we are not very good at realistically thinking what can get done in a given day, right? So sometimes when it's a existing project and you can carve out your unique area to contribute to that, things maybe run a little bit smoother. But I do both.
Does anyone else want to jump in and take a stab at that one? Do you prefer an honors student to come to you with an idea already, or do you like to provide the ideas?
For me, it's a conversation. I think I will tell them maybe about what's happening in the lab, and then I will ask them where their interests fit in what we're doing. Simply because I have a certain number of resources to do the projects that we have. And I can't necessarily take resources from one area and spend it somewhere else, because I do have a responsibility to the granting agencies that have given me the money to do the work that I said I was going to do.
Thanks, Jenny Lee. Another question that was sent directly to me was, hi, I have a question. Most professors in the panel have mainly mentioned that they have had students work with them during summers. Can students also have the opportunity to work during the fall or the winter semester?
My summer students, I hire them as casuals throughout the year if they want that as their part-time job. So yes, you can continue with us. And even I have some that start during the year as well. It really depends on the project, because sometimes you do need like a ramp up time, and during term time that isn't always feasible. So it really depends on the projects. I'd say more often they continue throughout the year rather than starting in the year, but I'm not saying that can't happen. It just depends on the project.
Yeah, that's exactly my experience as well. Often I have students who started in the summer continue part-time during the year. And usually it's the student who says they don't really have time to spend more time on it during the year while classes are going on.
There's a really good question from Jen. Does every honors degree need a supervisor? I'm an English major applying for honors this year. Well, I don't know if I can answer that question because I'm not sure what it is, because I did a double honors degree in English and history, but back when the dinosaurs were roaming the earth, back in the 1990s. And so I don't remember doing an honors project quite that. We had lots of honors classes, but I don't remember doing an honors project. So they may have changed how things are done. I would check with the English department.
We have another question that, and I know it was kind of discussed a little bit, but someone's just wondering, how do I find those research opportunities? And they also ask, can first year students get involved in research, or would you like someone that's maybe a little bit more senior?
So first year students can get involved in research. I would suggest though emailing a supervisor maybe before a deadline for funding opportunities, because I know definitely in our college, we do have funds available that we can apply for with students for them to get involved and do summer research. There are also courses for summers for students to have undergraduate research experience. So there are opportunities available for students even before their last years.
That's wonderful. And if you have any last minute questions, feel free to either message them to Merle or send them in the chat. This is your opportunity to air out those questions. So
One that came in a little bit further back is, where can I find research opportunities? And I know that thankfully all four of our panelists kind of talked about this, about cold emailing a professor, paying attention to department websites, showing up for events, listening in class when a guest lecturer comes along and says, "Hi, I'm looking for students." So there's all throughout this whole roundtable, there have been lots and lots of suggestions. One of you, Sarah, I think you said that you just closed on a job that you had advertised. Yes, and that happens. So both the USask careers website and both so I've seen them on the campus careers website as well, where USask actually has job postings for where it says staff, and you click on that and all of a sudden there's undergraduate research opportunities in there and you don't even know. But also the Career Services Center has a website as well, and of course that's specific for students. So those are some of the suggestions that I have. Annie, I will put both of those links in the chat. And if any of you have more suggestions of where to find jobs, now's your chance.
Well, I was wondering whether the SURE group could offer to collect information. So Emily mentioned about her department is having this discussion or symposium. Maybe if there was a place where each department who is doing such things could send the details to be disseminated to students.
I think that would be brilliant. So just so you guys know, there are 190 students who have signed up for the SURE program this fall. So SURE is definitely growing, which it was a pilot program last year that's really, really settling in to the point where I've even had professors start to say, I want a SURE student next year. And I'm like, okay, but SURE is a co-curricular program thing. I just help train them on the side. It's like, you got to pay them and hire them and give them a job. But it's all become kind of mushed together, which is a good thing because it's showing that it's making an impact across campus. So that's important. But yes, I do agree, Emily, and this is something that my office is actually looking at doing a kind of a session for students and faculty to meet each other, kind of call it speed dating, if you will, for undergraduate research. And so that's coming up in a couple of weeks. And so that's an example of what's happening. But I'm certainly open to having some kind of a board that collects not so much the individual jobs, but like you said, these more department or college specific kind of events.
I think too, I think funding is tough. We do often have more students who want to do research than we have funding for. And I'm sure Merle knows this, but the funding for the college program didn't come through this past year. So that was a bit challenging. It's been there every year and then it didn't happen this year. So you might hear from faculty like, yeah, I'd love for you to join, but it's dependent on these funding sources that are somewhat unpredictable. And I don't want to discourage you from that. Definitely the USRA is one that's there, but it's competitive. So it's often the professor's grants where the money has to come from. So if I know everyone wants this one website where you can find all the opportunities and get the funding that way. It doesn't exist, and it would be hard for it to just exist. You kind of have to look in your discipline. MyTax is one that I think undergrads, you guys should all be checking out the MyTax website. There's global opportunities through that, and opportunities through in Canada. So maybe that's a good point. Your research doesn't have to be at the U of S. As much as we want you to stay here, there's other opportunities at other universities and other places in the world as well. So, but yeah, I think I see a lot of you guys like, where can I find this information? It's not as simple. I don't know I don't know if I know the answer to that. It's kind of what we do. We scour the internet for funding opportunities. There's the main ones that we know about, but sometimes finding these weird foundation grants or these unique opportunities from unfamiliar places is where the money comes from. So it's good practice.
Just so you guys all know, those of you who are here today, so the section of our undergraduate research website around research assistantships and funding, we upgraded it just this week, and if you open it up, I just put the link in the chat. If you open it up, it does have both USask undergraduate research funding. The NSERC USRAs are moving to my office, and so I'll be the one actioning them going forward. I have a whole listing of all kinds of national funding opportunities and international funding opportunities, exactly what Emily just said, including the MyTax one, because MyTax Accelerate has been open to undergraduate students. And so for a MyTax, what you do is that you've got a student, a faculty member, and an industry partner, and the three of you work together to apply to MyTax, and they have excellent funding streams.
Yeah, some of my most successful projects have been through MyTax. So it's a great, if you're thinking that you might want to work in industry, especially, that's a great program to just try and be a part of, I think.
One of the reasons why I really like MyTax is that when you think industry, don't just think, engineering or science. So any museum actually can apply for MyTax. So if you're in history or you're in English, any group that's doing communications or journalism that might be interested in hosting MyTax is open to every single discipline across campus. So if the business comes forward with a little bit of money, MyTax comes forward with the largest pot of money, and there's always a supervisor involved. It's an excellent model, and I would highly recommend that everybody check it out. And thank you, Sarah, for putting the link in the chat.
Yes, I was going to say, make sure you copy all those links in the chat, because there's some good ones in there. People have been throwing them in. So make a little document of those.
I see one question in the chat about computer engineering and physics and computational math. I think the best thing to do is just to go on the faculty website for those departments, and every faculty has a profile where it has at least a few sentences or a paragraph about their research, and find what interests you and just cold email those people. That's a great way to even get an idea about what kind of research is going on campus. So even if your first year, even if they don't have an opportunity this year for you, your name will be in their heads for subsequent years as well. So definitely doing the work on your end and learning what the faculty does, trying to read one of those papers that's going to seem like a completely different language to you perhaps right away, but coming and showing that you made an effort to learn at least a little bit about what they do always is really impressive.
I just put a link in the chat as well to a presentation that we did with the SURE program last week. We had like 96 students sign up for that, how to land an undergraduate research job, and a large portion within that was how to approach a professor about a research position. We've done an infographic about it, which is available on our website, and it just kind of breaks it down and gives you some good reminders of good practices and just to do it in a good way to approach a professor. And so that's the video. So the YouTube link that I just put at the bottom is the video that we did last week, and it's already had a whole bunch of views, and it's only been up since I think Monday. So It just shows you the appetite for students to know. Because unless you come from a research family and maybe your parents are professors, something like that, so you kind of know how research works. But if you're new to campus and you didn't even you just thought of U of S as a degree granting place and you didn't understand about the research component, and that would be all students pretty much who show up on campus, it's a big learning curve to kind of figure that out. And so that's another video that we did 2 weeks ago. It's called the research landscape at U of S, and we did a presentation 2 weeks ago, and I'll put the link in for that one as well, because we kind of break that down and show you what it looks like sort of from a faculty perspective in terms of how they access funding, what happens next, and yeah, and take you through sort of the clock cycle of a research grant, and show and break down. I had one student who said, it's like you pulled back the curtains and we got to see what was happening behind the scenes. I was like, I might get in trouble for that. I don't know.
No,
Anyway.
It's nice for students to know what, like, a lot of, as much as undergraduate teaching is one part of our job, right? Research is often what drives most of us. And so it's nice. I always like it when students know about that side of what we do. And I talk about my research in my class a lot for that very reason, just to try and show, like, often a lot of us have the 40-40-20 model, that 40% of our job is teaching, 40% is research, and 20% is administration. So when you put it in that perspective, yeah, it's a little bit different when the students hear those numbers.
Genre has put another question in the chat. I feel like this was answered already, but when should we start emailing researchers? When is the best? I'd say today.
I was gonna say after this.
It's not really. Actually, I'm going to ask the panel to really talk about that, if you guys don't mind.
I would say at least a month before any of those funding deadlines. Just because, one, someone might not have the space, because we do have other people in the lab. And two, if we don't have money in our operating grants to pay you, being able to apply for as many of those funding opportunities as possible becomes really important. So if you email me after every single funding deadline has passed, it's a lot more difficult. Also, if you email me 2 days before it's due and then we have to write it, we might not put the best package together.
Yeah, so maybe emailing now is fine, but don't expect necessarily to get a response. So maybe even acknowledge that in your email. Say you just wanted to let whomever know that you're interested, and these are your interests, this is your background, but you understand there might not be anything available at the moment. Please keep me in mind, or let me know if you need further information, that kind of thing.
I know some professors kind of collect up all the people that are interested and then look at who's going to have the most likelihood of being successful at the funding opportunities, and then choose those people to put those applications forward. So there is a competitiveness to it, but being in the conversation is important.
There's a question that came in about honors. How much of an idea do we need of our research topic before finding a professor to work with? We did kind of talk about this, and how having an idea and then having that conversation with a professor is the place to start. Jenny Lee talked about this, and we really appreciate that. So having no idea what you want to do is maybe not the best, way to showcase your own research strength. If you would like to be seen as a curious researcher, you can perhaps show what you're curious about and what you'd like to research. Maybe that would be a good idea. But that's just me off the top of my head. I don't supervise students. Emily might have a very different perspective, or Sarah or Chris or Jenny Lee.
I'm in engineering, we don't have honors, so I'm completely clueless.
I'd say start by looking at the faculty members' web pages, see what kind of research they kind of do, and then talk to them. Because we normally have a general description of what we're interested in. So if you're generally interested in the same topic, that would be a good plan to email and say, hey, I looked at your website. I see you work on this. I'm generally interested in said topic. I would like to do an honors. Could we set up a time to meet and we could discuss more? So it doesn't have to be very specific, but maybe just giving an indication that you have looked at our websites and you know what we kind of work on might be helpful.
And I think it's very department or school or college specific as well. But the two, keeping in mind I don't teach undergrad, but the two honor students that I co-supervised, it was their full fourth year. And so although we had a very general topic, like it was going to be in neurorehabilitation or like balance and walking control with a neurological population, it was the first term where they developed what part of that big topic was their own individual project. So I think most departments, you need to have an idea of what you want to do and apply, but then you have time once you're accepted to carve out the details of your project.
Wonderful. So I just looked at the clock and it is 4 p.m. Unfortunately, it is time for us to end our session, but I wanted to thank you all for being here today. I know even for me, I learned lots from all of you, and getting to have that connection with faculty that maybe sometimes seems so far away, I know means a lot. And thanks for all the students that took the time to attend today. Oh, I heard a little noise there, but yes, thank you again. It was a pleasure.
Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you to our 4 panelists. We enjoyed everything, and thank you so much for offering your time for undergraduate research. And if anyone does have any ideas of other things, thank you for Chris for bringing that forward. But if you have other ideas of things that my office should be doing to help and support and grow undergraduate research, I'm all ears. So thanks so much. Very helpful. There's lots of thank yous coming in on the chat. So thanks to everyone. I'm going to stop the recording and then I'll end the session.